And now, the fifth and final round of Combat Sports Live.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Combat Sports Live. This is Jeremy Ridgway on location at the Renaissance Academy of Martial Arts in downtown Lynchburg. I was able to pull Caleb McAllister out of his training for a few minutes to talk with us about his upcoming bout. Caleb, how you doing?
Doing great, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on.
Just wanted to kind of, get your thoughts on 2 weeks out from your professional debut. What's going through your mind?
Really just trying to stay as relaxed as possible. Even though this is my first pro fight, I've had a lot of fights as an amateur against some very tough competition with EFC and some of the other organizations. I've always been kind of matched up with guys that are going to push me. And I'm looking to continue that as a pro. I know UWC has got, some of the best fighters on the East Coast. And
what has been your experience as an amateur fight in Virginia mixed martial arts? Did you have a good experience on the amateur scene?
I did. I definitely did. I made a lot of great friends. A lot of the guys that I fought, I'm still good friends with. And like I said, there's some very, very tough fighters, out here on the East Coast. Sometimes you think of Vegas and California and whatnot as being the centers of MMA in the U.S., but man, East Coast can hold its own, amateur or pro, with anybody.
Are you doing anything special with your training? Is there anything that you have seen from your opponent that you have focused on in your training?
Well, you always want to have some idea of who you're going to be fighting, as best you're able at least. But at the same time, you don't want to get too focused on being, or on having one specific game plan. Because the fact is, I think it was Mike Tyson said, as soon as you get hit, plans go out the window. So you want to have some idea of what you're looking to accomplish once the bell rings, but at the same time, you need to be comfortable wherever the fight goes, so you don't want to neglect anything.
Your opponent, Jeremy Carper, he's had a couple professional fights. You're making your professional debut, so he's got some experience. Are you at all worried about your opponent being a little bit more experienced, or what do you know about Jeremy Carper?
Well, honestly, I'm not really that worried about it because the fact is just about everybody I've fought has had experience on me. I debuted as an amateur against a guy who had 6 fights. So I kind of got thrown into the deep end, sink or swim, and it forced me to become a better fighter. It forced me to adapt to that level of competition. And I'm expecting the same thing to happen as a pro. I know Jeremy Carper's a very well-rounded, very aggressive, tough fighter. But I think I'm going to be able to bring a good fight to him. You
were talking about the different promotions that you have fought for. The UWC has obviously got a fantastic reputation for doing a very high-level show in terms of quality. How does it feel to be making your debut in that organization?
I'm very happy about it. Very happy. Not only because I'm able to fight, within a few hours of home, but also just because I'm able to fight in an organization that puts on a good show. They have great production values and great level of competition. It's a lot of guys go out there and they just look to find a tomato can, to pad their records, especially when they're starting out. And I don't really have any interest in doing that. I want to find the best level of competition that I possibly can and push myself. And UWC is a really good place to do that.
With that fight card that's coming up, it's a very interesting fight card. You've got great fighters like Mike Easton, John Dotson. There's a very interesting matchup on the card. I didn't know if you knew anything about Jason David Frank,
the Green Ranger.
The Green Ranger.
Yes, I know who that is.
Making his UWC debut. I think he's had a few fights elsewhere.
Yeah, I don't think he's been fighting for that long. Maybe a year or two. But I know he's had a few amateur fights, and obviously he's had a martial arts background since he was a little kid. So he's got a very unique style and a lot of talent, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him fight after I get done.
I didn't know if you knew this about Jason Frank. I know that you're a Christian.
Yes.
And you're very, very devout in your faith.
Absolutely.
Were you aware that Jason David Frank was the co-owner, founder of Jesus Didn't Tap? Actually,
I think I found that out about 2 days ago. Was when I think I saw it on one of the press releases. I hadn't known that before, but that is really, really cool that he's that is something else that he's involved in. I'm impressed.
Wouldn't you say that is a bit of a paradox, being that you're a very devout Christian? A lot of people might say that the Christian faith is turn the other cheek, MMA is for barbarians, or MMA is for the... Yes. I mean, how does your faith play into this sport?
Well, you're right, Jeremy. I mean, I've heard all of those impressions before, and honestly, I don't think that's true except for, on first impressions. The fact is that MMA is no different than any other sport, or at least no different than any other contact sport. Now, if as a Christian you have a problem with someone playing football, I disagree with you, but I can respect that at least you're consistent in your beliefs. But if you think that it's morally acceptable to play football but somehow different to compete in MMA, well, I don't think you're being very consistent in your positions there. So my goal as a fighter and as a Christian is simply to represent who I am, what I believe, to the best of my ability as a fighter, to try to set an example and conduct myself in the ring and out of the ring in a way that demonstrates my faith as a Christian.
That's a very interesting point of view. I've never really thought about it that way. I think that anybody that tried to argue the point would have a tough time with you in terms of making the argument that if you're a Christian, you can't be a fighter. You see guys like Jason David Frank who founded Jesus Didn't Tap, and he's a Christian, and now you got guys like Randy Couture and Matt Hughes that talk openly about their faith.
Rich Franklin in the UFC is one of my role models. Ben Henderson, one of the younger guys in WC, also a very outspoken Christian. So I'm definitely not the only one out there.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, it's starting to become more of a obvious tie between being a Christian and being a fighter. It's kind of becoming common.
It's really not as unusual as people would expect. You're right. And I think there's some reasons for that. Is someone who has that faith, who is a Christian, it just gives you a different level of confidence, a little level of security with yourself, where you can go into a fight and not be afraid of what's going to happen. You know that God is in control. I've done everything I can do to prepare, and the rest is in God's hands. I just get to go out there and have fun, not worry about it.
We'll be watching very closely. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting here with Caleb McAllister. He is making his debut again at the UWC at the Patriot Center in Fairfax, Virginia in 2 weeks. May 22nd. If you want information on the fight, go to www.uwcmma.com. Caleb will be fighting alongside guys, like I said before, John Dodson, Mike Easton, and also television movie star turned MMA fighter Jason David Frank, also the founder of Jesus Didn't Tap. So you've got a great, diverse card. It's going to be a great night of fights. Make sure that you check it out. Caleb, I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy. Come out and watch the fights, guys. It's going to be a great event, and I guarantee it won't be a boring fight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Caleb. And that's going to do it for this week, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jeremy Ridgway signing off from Combat Sports Live. Tune in next week. Take it easy.